Chakotay's got a girlfriend. Chakotay's got a girlfriend. This is a review of the Star Trek Voyager episode Unity. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know why sexy bald ex-Borg is exactly Chakotay's type, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. It's Voyager's first proper Borg episode. Because the producers said, what, are we supposed to let all these costumes and set pieces from Star Trek First Contact just sit around collecting dust when we've got a perfectly good, a perfectly average, when we've got a TV series that could use them for something? Let's see what something they use them for. Chakotay and Ensign Dead Soon are in a shuttlecraft on their way back to Voyager from a scouting mission when they realize they're lost. After flailing around for a few minutes in a nebula, they pick up a transmission that at first seems to be coming from Voyager, but turns out to be from a nearby planet with a settlement that has a population of about 80,000 people. The transmission turns out to be a distress call. Chakotay responds to the call, and the person on the other end recognizes them as coming from a Federation ship. But how would people in the Delta Quadrant know about the Federation? They land, and Chakotay and Ensign, almost out of time, approach the settlement. They find themselves surrounded by shadowy figures carrying weapons, and next thing they know, they're in a shooting match. Ensign not gonna make it is shot. Chakotay puts up a little bit more of a fight, but he gets shot too. Luckily, some other shadowy figures show up and drive the first group of shadowy figures away. Then they carry Chakotay to safety. Chakotay wakes up on a cot in a darkened room where a woman named Riley Fraser speaks to him. Chakotay's like, "What happened to Ensign didn't make it." "I'm afraid she didn't make it." Riley explains to him that the people on this planet were all abducted and brought here by aliens who have never returned after dropping them off. There are various factions that regularly attack and raid each other, fighting over their limited supplies, but she is part of a group who have established a community based on cooperation and shared responsibility. Chakotay wants to contact Voyager right away, but Riley tells him that the last raid on their commune damaged their communication equipment, and it'll take time to fix it. Meanwhile, Chakotay is still badly injured. That blast he took put a big old boo-boo on his brain, so he needs to rest. Cut to Voyager, where nothing is happening and everyone is bored, so being in the show is no different than watching the show? Meta. Nothing is happening and everyone is bored until they spot a Borg cube, that is. Janeway's like, "Oh shit, red alert, shields up, armed weapons, kill it! But Tuvok's like, "Relax, look, see how the ship is tilted at a slight angle instead of straight up and down? It's inactive, we're fine." B'Elanna confirms this, reporting no evidence of any operational systems or life signs aboard the cube. There are no other Borg in the area, but since they have a history of coming back to pick up their damaged technology, more Borg could show up at any time. Even so, Janeway thinks it's worth making a quick visit to that cube. If they can find out what damaged it, maybe they can use that knowledge to create better defenses against the Borg should they run into them again. Run into the Borg again? But what are the odds of that? While the Voyager crew prepares to board the Borg cube, Chakotay is getting a little tour of Riley's commune. Riley's like, "Yeah, I sent that distress call because I was hoping someone could come and provide us with some supplies and equipment because we don't want to leave this planet. We want to stay. This community we've created is a little slice of perfection. Sure, a few of us struggled at first to assimilate, but once they saw the benefits, they realized it was futile to resist living and working collectively." Sounds great, and I have no further questions or suspicions. Chakotay offers to help Riley repair the communication system, but Riley's like, "No, you go back and lay down and rest your little head some more, and whatever you do, don't go through that door." Tuvok and B'Elanna are checking out the Borg cube. Just as they thought, everything is deactivated and all the Borg aboard appear to be dead, including this fella who slumps forward through a tangle of hoses and wires that apparently he died hiding behind like the coward he was. Janeway decides to bring one of the Borg corpses aboard Voyager so the doctor can cut it open and root around in its guts and figure out what killed it. Back on the planet, Chakotay decides he's going to walk through the forbidden door after all, and after randomly slapping his hand against the control panel, pounding on the door and yelling for help, then randomly slapping his hand against the control panel some more, he gets the door open. He staggers outside into the sunlight and sees the people of the colony going about their work. Chakotay walks up on a group of people gathered around someone, and they all turn around and, oh shit, they've got Borg implants! They're Borg! And then the one they were gathered around turns and, it's Riley! She's a Borg! And she's bald! The hair was just a wig! It's just like Melrose Place! When Kimberly finished having sex with Michael and she went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror and pulled off her wig that we didn't know was a wig? Hey, wasn't Robert Beltran on Melrose Place? No, he was on Models, Inc., which was a spin-off of Melrose Place, so get your facts right before you go shooting your mouth off about Robert Beltran being on Melrose Place! Anyway, it turns out Riley and the others on this planet are ex-Borg who were on that deactivated cube that Voyager found. The cube was damaged by a space hurricane or something, and their link to the Borg collective was lost. All the Borg on the cube regained their individual identities, and most of them left the cube and came to this planet. At first, everyone got along, but as time went on, divisions began to form, and yada yada yada. 5 years later, here we are, with multiple factions in constant conflict with one another. Chakotay's like, why didn't you just tell me all this to begin with? Riley says, we were afraid you'd refuse to help us because we're former Borg. No, I'm totally okay with it. Oh, great. But before anything else can happen, Chakotay collapses because he's still got that pesky traumatic brain injury to deal with. Back on Voyager, the doctor is oddly cheerful about getting to autopsy a dead Borg. I guess he's been bored too. During the autopsy, the doctor accidentally turns on a backup power cell in the Borg's brain, which causes the Borg to sit up and look around for a few seconds before the doctor turns it back off. B'Elanna notes that if the rest of the Borg still on the cube were to be reactivated like that, it would be a big problem. Meanwhile, on the planet, Chakotay's condition is getting so much worse that Orem, the community's doctor, proposes a radical treatment, linking Chakotay to their collective. Chakotay's like, you want to Borg me, you bunch of Borg? Orem explains, the ex-Borg living on this planet aren't part of the larger Borg collective, but they do still have the ability to link with each other's minds for brief periods of time. This short-term, limited collective has certain benefits, including the ability to heal injuries. Chakotay would be temporarily connected to a small collective of volunteers from the community, and they would send him positive vibes or whatever, and it would fix his brain. Chakotay's like, absolutely not. Okay then. Nice knowing you, Commander Chakotay. Wait, I changed my mind. Borg me up. So they Borg Chakotay up. Orem puts a little thing on his neck, and that allows him to hear the thoughts of the other ex-Borg, including Riley, and he has a nice little acid trip with some stock footage from old Borg episodes mixed in, and when he wakes up, he's all better. Riley's like, how'd you enjoy hearing everyone's thoughts? Chakotay says, it was really cool, and I feel like I know so much about you now, like what your favorite flower is and the fact that you had a grandfather. Riley touches her own cheek, and Chakotay feels it in his cheek. She strokes her own arm, and Chakotay feels it in his arm. A lingering effect from the link, Riley says. They can even still hear each other's thoughts. Riley goes, want to have sex? Chakotay's like, yes, please. It is like Melrose Place. Wait a minute, if Chakotay and Riley have that remote touch thing and can hear each other's thoughts, does that mean the others who are linked to them can feel and hear them too? So if Chakotay and Riley are having sex, it's better than Melrose Place. Later, Chakotay's working on that damaged communication system like, I fix your radio after the lovin'. Riley says, when your ship gets here, do you think you can talk to your captain about the real reason I sent that distress call? You mean the real reason that was revealed to me last night after we got done screwing our brains out? Yes. Psh, talk to her yourself, I don't work for you. Voyager arrives at the planet and Chakotay beams up with Riley, who meets with Captain Janeway and says, okay, I have a plan. It's a little wacky, but I think it will work and make life on our planet a lot more peaceful. All we need you to do is take your ship back to that damaged Borg cube and turn on its technobabble brain radio so we can use it down here to reestablish a neural link with all the ex-Borg on this planet. Once everyone is sharing everyone else's thoughts, we can work out our differences, end the conflict between factions, and go back to living and working together in peace. What do you say? You want us to help you re-Borg everybody? That's a hard pass. We'll give you medical supplies and help you fix some shit, but then we're out of here. Riley leaves, and Janeway says to Chakotay, what's up with her wanting to re-Borg everybody? Do you think she's up to no good? Chakotay says, I think she's being totally sincere, and I suspect no hidden agenda or destructive intent whatsoever, other than her intent to relink everyone on the planet into a telepathic collective without their consent. Right, except for that. And you know what? Being in a Borg collective's not even that bad. Not even that. Are you fucking her, Chakotay? Did the two of you set up your own little Melrose place on that planet? Models Inc. What? I was on Models Inc. I have no idea what you're talking about. After Voyager drops off its supplies with the colony, B'Elanna and Chakotay are in a shuttle on their way back to Voyager when Chakotay gets a call on his brain phone from Riley and the others. We're under attack, Chakotay. We need your help. B'Elanna notices Chakotay suddenly seems distracted, gets worried, and goes to call sickbay, but Chakotay's like, never mind, I'll get it, and he shoots her with his phaser. Guided/directed by the mini-collective, Chakotay goes to the Borg ship to turn on the thing that they need to establish a link with everyone else on the planet. Tuvok shows up with a security detail and catches Chakotay in the act. They exchange phaser fire, and Chakotay is stunned, but is able to turn on the thing before he passes out. The Borg cube comes back to life. On the planet, the members of Riley's mini-collective are able to link up with the brains of the others who are attacking them and get them to knock it off. On the Borg cube, all the dead Borg drones suddenly wake up and start marching toward the away team. They manage to grab Chakotay and beam out before the Borg can reach them. Then the Borg cube self-destructs. Voyager gets a message from the mini-collective announcing that they destroyed the cube and have terminated their link with Chakotay. They're like, sorry we forced Chakotay to help us, but it was the only way to get what we wanted. Thanks, bye. In sickbay, the doctor confirms that Chakotay is no longer linked to the ex-Borg in any way. Janeway's like, how were they able to re-link with him in the first place without that thingy on his neck? Tuvok says, there's a technobabble explanation, but does it really matter? Janeway's like, I guess not. Get lost, you two. Alone with Chakotay, Janeway says, I don't blame you for what happened. They forced you to act against your will, plus you're generally a bit of a sap. Chakotay says, I know they didn't mean any harm, but they didn't hesitate to impose their will on me to get what they wanted. I wonder how long their cooperative ideals will last now that they have the power of the collective. That's a very complex and provocative question that cuts right to the heart of, and time's up! Unity was written by veteran Voyager writer and producer Kenneth Biller and directed by Tom Paris himself, Robert Duncan McNeil, the second of his 4 directing credits on Voyager. Like so many Voyager episodes, this one starts with a very promising concept, but doesn't really know where to go with that concept, so it ends up just kind of kicking it around for an hour. The idea of Chakotay stumbling upon a colony of people who don't belong in the Delta Quadrant, who turn out to be liberated former Borg, is a solid starting point, and the idea that they can still voluntarily link each other's minds into a collective and are planning to initiate a more widespread, less voluntary form of that link in order to quell the conflict among the various ex-Borg factions would seem to have a ton of potential. There are so many avenues the episode could have gone down, so many angles of the Borg that could have been explored. Is the collective inherently sinister? Is the erasure of individuality and the formation of a dominant and irresistible hive mind inevitable, despite the best intentions of everyone at the start? Is it ethical to impose such a collective on people if the goal is to achieve peace and harmony? The episode flirts with these sorts of questions at the very end in the conversation between Janeway and Chakotay in sickbay, but other than that, they are left largely unexplored. The same goes for the idea of Chakotay linking into the collective himself. This is an idea with a lot of potential, it seems to me. What if Chakotay is reluctant at first, but then finds that he kind of likes being in the collective? And not just because it gets him laid, because it offers other benefits. Maybe it allows him to feel known and accepted by others in a way he's never experienced before. Maybe he starts to question his attitude toward the Borg. Then, maybe something happens to cause him to doubt his positive view of this collective, which puts him at odds with Riley and his other new telepathic pals. I don't know, these are just a few of the possibilities that suggest themselves to me based on the basic concepts of the episode. I'm not saying the episode had to go in any of those directions, but it would have been nice for it to go in a direction. Instead, we get half an episode of cutely avoiding the fact that these people are Borg, then the big reveal midway through, which Chakotay is instantly okay with, then Chakotay being linked to their intranet collective for medical reasons, which goes fine and does exactly what they say it will, then the idea of using the collective on a broader scale to end the factional conflict comes up when the episode is mostly over. Then they use the collective to force Chakotay to help them, and he does, and it works just like they said it would, and then the episode's over, and a lot of stuff has happened, but it doesn't feel like we've meaningfully engaged with any of it. Even the justification for Riley's cooperative group wanting to establish a collective with those outside their community falls flat. We're told this is a necessary step to protect the society they've built from the threat of these attacks, but other than at the beginning, when they shoot Chakotay and the disposable ensign, and the end, when the cooperative is suddenly under attack, these outside groups don't factor in at all. We're told constant raids are a problem, that life on the planet is anarchy, but we don't see that. This community certainly doesn't feel like it's under constant threat of attack and destruction, and drastic measures are needed to resolve that threat. Chakotay's relationship with Riley is also left to float aimlessly through the episode with no apparent focus or point other than to help set up Chakotay to go to the Borg ship at the end and kill some time leading up to that. Was Riley just using Chakotay the whole time? Were the rest of the ex-Borg who linked with Chakotay working with Riley to deceive Chakotay and hide their true intentions from him, or to influence him to have a supportive attitude toward their plans? Does Chakotay feel betrayed by Riley's actions? There isn't even a final scene with Riley and Chakotay where any tension between them is addressed, much less resolved. I actually like the episode's B-plot following Voyager as it discovers and explores the damaged Borg cube a lot better. The Borg are still new and scary to the crew at this point. We've not yet reached the phase of the series where Voyager is capable of blowing up multiple Borg cubes by itself and getting away with hardly a scratch. And when that cube pops up on the view screen, it feels ominous and threatening. But despite that feeling, Janeway's decision to send an away team over to investigate what seems to be an inactive Borg vessel plays as reasonable, an acceptable risk, given the apparent circumstances and the potential benefit if they can figure out what damaged this ship and use it to their advantage. At the end of the episode, after Chakotay wakes up the cube, the away team is able to get back to Voyager just moments before a group of Borg drones is able to reach them. Then the ship escapes while the cube immediately self-destructs on the orders of the cooperative. The sense is that our heroes have escaped a much more harrowing confrontation with the Borg and done so by the skin of their teeth. It's maybe the last time the Borg actually feel dangerous on Voyager. Unfortunately, while that B-plot works a lot better than the A-plot, it also serves to spoil the reveal in the A-plot that Riley and the others in the settlement are ex-Borg. Not directly, but if you've ever seen a TV show or movie before, it's kind of obvious, unless you go in assuming the mysterious colony of displaced aliens and the abandoned Borg cube that just so happens to be floating nearby have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Another thing that detracts from the B-plot and the entire episode, but I found it especially noticeable during the scenes on Voyager and the damaged Borg cube, is the benumbing blandness of the dialogue. If characters aren't delivering exposition or blabbing technobabble, they're saying limp, generic lines like, they ought to rename this region the Negative Expanse. We haven't run across anything interesting for days. Or, I'm not being apprehensive, I'm just nervous as hell. Flat, obvious declarative statements, devoid of personality or point of view, interchangeable among the characters, the sort of lines that could be said by anyone because they exist just so that somebody can say something. Despite the generally mediocre quality of the series, Voyager boasts a talented and game ensemble of actors who by this stage are well practiced in handling clunky, unsophisticated dialogue, but at some point the script does have to meet the performer halfway, and this one just doesn't get there. Even Riley's post-Link seduction of Chakotay comes across as stilted and perfunctory. I want to be closer to you. I want you to feel everything I feel. Stop it. My screen's not designed to hold this much heat. This is not only the first proper appearance of the Borg in Voyager, it's also the first time the Borg were used after being featured as the villains in the film Star Trek First Contact. At the time, there was some debate among the creative team on Voyager as to how the Borg should be utilized in their series, or if they should be utilized at all. One option discussed was not using them at all, allowing First Contact to be their final appearance. Eventually, as we'll examine in upcoming reviews, the Borg became an all-too-common presence on Voyager, but for Unity, the creators decided to play it safe and use a trick similar to that used for TNG's Descent, and focus the episode not on a confrontation with the Borg collective itself, but a group of Borg who had broken off from the collective. Unity may not be very impressive on its own, but at least it doesn't serve to dilute and diminish the Borg any further. That would come later. As far as the episode itself, Unity is frustratingly typical of Voyager. Things happen. None of the things are terribly interesting, even to the characters they're happening to. Along the way, the story suggests a few things that it could say concerning the larger significance of the things that are happening, but it never actually says any of them. And then the hour is up and it's time for things to stop happening. And what goes for this episode, more often than not, goes for the series as a whole, so at least there's some unity. Those are my thoughts on Unity. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as I continue this batch of reviews of Borg episodes. Next up, a show from Voyager's 4th season featuring its then brand new breakout character, 7 of 9. The episode is titled The Raven. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.